congratulate you on your nomination by the President for the position of Minister of Interior. You were a member of the 5th Parliament, right?
That is so, Mr. Chairman.
And in the 5th Parliament, you were Deputy Minority Leader.
That is so.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm so that we'll determine whether you're entitled to the privileges that we give to leaders of the South, right? Very well. Colleagues, this is our former leader, and so we will let him enjoy the privileges we give to leaders of this House. Now you've been nominated for the position of the Minister for Interior. I'll invite members to ask questions relating to your CV, but we will nominate one person each from respective sides to talk to your CV, so that after that we go into the others.
I've been in legal practice until I was invited to join active partisan politics in May 2003, and I started as Deputy Attorney General. Then, after the 2004 elections, I was appointed Regional Minister for the Upper West Region from 2005 to about October 2007. I was then brought back to the Ministry of Justice as Minister of State. And in the 2008 election, I won my first term in Parliament, came into Parliament, and became Deputy Minority Leader. I was also then a member of the Pan-African Parliament, and in the 2012 elections, I lost the elections, went back as the first year. You recall that the Parliament rose in January of 2013, and that year I was indisposed at the beginning of the year, lost my father in May, and started the legal year of 2014 back to my law firm Dery & Co. as Managing Director. So I've been there until I went back, campaigned, and I've been elected to come back to Parliament. And so here I am, granted a privilege by His Excellency the President to be Minister Designate, and therefore your subject matter this morning. When you get into public office, you are able to impact your people on a larger scale. As a practicing lawyer, I tried to variously impact the development of our people by indulging a lot of pro bono practice. I also was involved in the NGO activity. You would see that I was chairman of Rural Aid Northern Ghana, which is the biggest NGO in water and sanitation at the time in the whole world, supported by Water Aid. And I subsequently became chairman of the Water Aid Partner Roundtable, which allowed me to impact people's lives by provision of potable water and sanitation facilities. And so it has always been that I should give something back, and I found it in politics. And so I'm here hoping to continue the journey.
I see that your residential address is missing. You've given some details about your contacts. It's just a postal address, but residential address is not given. So maybe you will fill it in for us.
Should I provide that now? Thank you. That is so. That is so.
And then on page 2, you were a Deputy Attorney General from 2003. I guess it ran over to 2005, January 6, not 2004.
That is so.
And the same with Minister of State at the Ministry of Justice, 2007 to 2009, January.
That is so.
And Deputy Minority Leader, 2012 should change to 2013. And member of the Pan-African Parliament, I think it also ended in 2013.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, these are the few observations I have.
On the last page, page 3, your consultancy, you do not indicate who engaged you. We would want to know who engaged you for the 2 consultancies you engaged in over the period of 2001.
Thank you.
Shops, capacity building, all of that was in the template that we provided. So please, when you are filling in the gaps, we would like to have that. And apart from the Ghana Bar Association, do you belong to any other professional body?
No.
Mr. Chairman, that will be it.
I notice in page 2, Ministry of Justice. Now, the Constitution chose its own words, and the Constitution in 88, Chairman, with your indulgence, says there shall be an Attorney General and Minister for Justice. There shall be an Attorney General and Minister for Justice. Why do you want to work on only one part of it, as we recall your background?
This is, Chairman, the problem that I have sometimes when I hear people say it's separation of Ministry of Justice from Attorney General. What you actually want to say is you want an independent prosecution authority. That's what you want. But what the Constitution defines is an Attorney General who is a Minister of State, period.
So were you Deputy Minister for Justice and Attorney General, or you are just Deputy Minister for Justice?
I was Deputy Minister for Justice and Attorney General because of the designation by an EI, but not because of the Constitution. That is a distinction that I wanted to make. By the Constitution per se, I was Deputy Attorney General, but by the EI, I was also Deputy Minister for Justice. Thank you. I think the Honorable wants to dress me in full clothing. Thank you very much. I think I appreciate that.
The 3rd page, reading, watching football. But I know, and I can attest to another hobby, which I and you participate together on many occasions. I'm surprised.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I grant the motion to add dancing.
Now, I think that we will continue the tradition of how we vet our leaders. So we will allow a few members to ask very pertinent questions relating to the position he's being nominated to, and then we'll take it from there.
By His Excellency the President, to the post of Minister for the Interior. I have a very special relationship with Honorable Ambrose Dery, and I always say it that I was inspired to go and read law at the university by Honorable Ambrose Dery. When I finished sixth form, I was always sitting in his chambers in Bolga every afternoon. And when we were filling the nominations to the University of Ghana, I asked him, and he said, hey, go and read law. I said, yes, I've always wanted to be a lawyer because of you. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say that I'm flattered by the comments of the Honorable Ayarga. I can only say that it was a privilege granted me by God, and glory be to God that you've now come out to be such a great lawyer. I'm proud of you. Thank you.
Now, as Minister for the Interior, your job will be to mobilize whatever resources will be available to ensure the protection of life and property within the boundaries of Ghana. I listened to the President's nominee to the post of Senior Minister yesterday, and he alluded to the constraints that government will have employing people because of the resource envelope limitations. And so we shouldn't be looking to government for employment. And yet, if you look at the police to population ratio, it is so low. We need to engage more police officers. As a center-right party, would you encourage the strengthening of the institution of private provision of security services so that those who can afford will engage from there, and then those that the state will recruit and train will focus more on more public-related security service provision? And if you accept that as a viable alternative that should be promoted, will you go as far as extending to such a specialized arrangement the right to bear guns in the exercise of their function as private security provisioning companies?
To be specific, I believe that His Excellency the President's government is going to ensure that there is a strict enforcement of existing legislation so as to create a conducive macro environment for the private intervention and other interventions that we want. Much as we would want to make use of private security where necessary, but I think that we will not abdicate our role to provide that, cover through the police and other security agencies. And there are avenues to raise funds. For instance, if you take the police, we have the four police units in South Sudan. Ghana has sent one team. The United Nations was so impressed about it. They want 2 more teams. Should we get 2 more teams in there who earn some hard currency that would not only support the economy, but also help finance the various institutions? We have public-private agreements and engagements in the prisons, for instance. There are engagements between the prison service and some private sector actors, basketry. They're going to do some in toilet rolls and what have you. So I believe that there will be some internally generated funds that would come in, and I have confidence that this government would get the resources to make good on the promises that we made to Ghana. Thank you.
The erstwhile government, not just the police, but also all the other security services, fire service, prison service, is housing. And once again, I listened to the minister-designate for Ministry of Finance and the minister-designate for senior minister post, and they painted a picture of an economy that is in the short to medium term going to be faced with liquidity problems. And so the financing of infrastructure might be a problem. Again, in the area of housing, how are you going to address the problem, and will you again dare consider the provisioning by use of private venture investments through a PPP, whatever form? Will you consider that as one of the major options? And if you so do, will Boku Central constituency will be your starting point?
Stated in our manifesto that there will be a national barracks regeneration program. And yes, PPP arrangements, one of the options. I recall when I was Deputy Attorney General, it was commenced with the police. I do know that from the briefings that I've got that prison is considering the same approach. So yes, the investment could come through the PPP arrangements, but we do so always conscious of value for money and ensuring that we give the country the best deal they can get. Thank you.
My last question for your, I hope I got the pronunciation right, Old Fadama. And most of them are involved in bringing in animals, mostly cattle, sheep, goat, and onions from the Sahelian parts of West Africa to Accra, to Kumasi. I also went to Kumasi, to where they called Mayanka. That's a slaughterhouse, and met with them last week. And they asked me to ask you, if you become the Minister for the Interior, whether you will stop the practice of police officers erecting barriers indiscriminately from Boku up to Accra, stopping, haulage trucks and, permit me to use the word, extorting monies from them and exploiting their vulnerabilities, because the animals, if you delay them at the checkpoint, many of them will die because there's a time period within which they must reach Accra. The same way, the onions also, there's a time frame within which they must reach Accra. So, and the same with yam and other, and tomatoes also. So will you remove all those unnecessary barriers and checkpoints and allow the free movement of goods and services? And even if those barriers are there, will you stop the practice of policemen making it impossible for these people to move these animals and products from the north to the southern part of the country?
These are private sector actors. As long as they're acting within the law, we will not allow security agencies to put impediments in their way. And we demand from the security agencies professionalism of the highest order. And it does not include extorting monies from private sector actors. So you can assure your people, I'm sure you want to compromise me because I think I have a lot of clients from Boku. But I'll be doing the work purely by the rule of law, and I'm sure that as long as the agencies are doing the wrong thing, those practices would be stopped.
Honorable Ambrose Dery, and to say that this is a man who is a devout Catholic, and I'm happy that His Excellency the President has chosen a devout Catholic as Minister of Internal Affairs. I think that he deserves this position. What has he got to do with this? If the anyway, I'll ignore Honorable Ni. I'll ask my question. Yes, Minister Designate, there's a serious concern in the prison service. And I'm sure you must have been aware, or you would be aware of it, that the immediate past council attempted to sell the prison's headquarters barracks at cantonments and the entire complex at Roman Ridge, and to relocate to a valley in Kitasi under a PPP arrangement. Officers of the service vehemently rejected that. What would you do when this House eventually passes you as Minister for Interior? What will be your initial, what will you do? Let me make it short. What will you do?
The Ghana Prison Service sought to or proposed to sell off its properties in cantonments. What I'm aware of is that in Kumasi, in the center of Kumasi, there's a prison, and there are moves to relocate the prison outside, and that transaction is what I know about. I shall investigate if or when given the nod. And believe me, we would ensure that no one would sell off the property of the state unjustifiably. But for now, let me say I'm not aware, and that I'll investigate, and the necessary action will be taken to protect the interests of the state. Every case must be considered on its own merits. If I give a blanket answer, it will be very unscientific. It depends on the proposal. And if the proposal sits well within the program the Excellency has for that, without sacrificing national interest, if indeed it will enhance national interest, it shall be considered and granted according to its merits. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Your last words, you cannot use if for the Commander-in-Chief and His Excellency. If you say if in the national interest, the Constitution does not define national interest, probably the Interpretation Act, you would not find it properly defined. So if tomorrow you have executive directives to relocate the prisons in Accra, will you conceive that as something pursuant to national interest?
I am of the conviction that if an EI or order comes from there, it will be well grounded. I'm convinced that it will be well grounded. Thank you.
Aware of the Justice for All program currently ongoing. And in the midst of the financial difficulties, the prison service has been faced with major challenges in terms of how their meager resources are being used and even the feeding for inmates. And I want to find out what you would do to ensure that the prisons are adequately taken care of and inmates and their reform programs are strengthened so that they come out and integrate properly into society.
We have it in the manifesto to decongest the prisons. And it might require the passing of legislation to deal with pre-trial detention, to deal with non-custodial sentences, to deal with separation of remand and conviction and convicts. So yes, it is in the manifesto, and right now we have about 13,000 prisoners, and the place is crowded. So yes, we might need that. But in the interim, there is a provision, especially in Sawan prison, where a judge goes to sit there and tries to alleviate or ameliorate the situation. We would continue to pursue those approaches until honorable members cooperate with us to pass the necessary legislation to enable us revamp the whole system, bearing in mind that we want people to come out and also have a system by which non-custodial sentences can be served without going to prison. So, Mr. Chairman, I think this is an opportunity to, in advance, appeal to members to be expectant and assist us. Thank you.
If the honorable nominee would be kind enough, pre-trial detention, there is practice in our national life of conflict that borders on the Constitution and the laws of Ghana, which requires that 48 hours within the period that any person is arrested. The right to a fair trial is an important right. Will you elaborate further what you intend to do in order to reduce the consequence of Ghanaians suffering from unnecessary pre-trial detention exercise by our security agencies, particularly the police?
I think that it has been stated clearly that security agencies under His Excellency the President will operate within the law, within the context of the human rights of the suspects. A suspect is a suspect until convicted. And we expect the security services, the police, and all those concerned to professionally do their work. If there's a need to detain somebody with beyond 48 hours, it can only be on the direction of a court, and we will insist that they respect the law and they respect the rights of suspects until they are convicted. So, Mr. Chairman, I believe that we would pursue that course and try to reduce, working towards eliminating the abuse of the system. That is why there will be provision to retrain, to train further, to enhance the training of our police to act professionally.
Chairman, I have another my case. There are instances where just a conflict of an exchange of words between a trotro driver and a police lands the trotro driver in cells, sometimes beyond 48 hours. Can you assure this House that you will not supervise such inhumane practices as Minister for Interior?
Chairman, I can assure you that I would not supervise nor condone that, and in that I have the full support of His Excellency the President.
The proposed Narcotics Commission bill, there's a strong civil society coalition out there that has supported the previous government to put a draft bill together. And they are keen on seeing this bill passed by this House. I want to gauge your level of commitment, if you are familiar with the bill, and what pledge can you make to this House and to civil society? There's a strong coalition out there, the Africa Group in Vienna, ECOWAS, and all of them, who are really, really looking forward to the passage of this Narcotic Commission bill. Are you familiar with the bill, and what is your commitment to this bill?
Chairman, I think this is a very important question. I'm first of all familiar with the commitment in our manifesto to come out with a comprehensive, legislation to increase penalties and to do all that we can to reduce towards eliminating narcotics. So I know there will be a need for legislation. I've also been informed that there is a bill that has not yet been passed. I have not studied the bill. I would do so, but I can assure that if it supports the ideals within the manifesto, you have my commitment, 100%.
Honorable Ambrose Dery, what if it is not within the manifesto, but in the national interest? You premise your concluding words that if it's in the manifesto, I'm sure Mrs. Anokumi is smiling at your back, a civil servant who understands this. The trust was to transform the Narcotics Control Board into a commission in order that it had more independence and more autonomy. Will you support that?
Chairman, I will support that principle. What the last question was premised on my understanding of the bill. Since I have not read it, I'm careful to give a blanket yes. But, empowering the board to become a commission and be more efficient in doing this work, yes. Yes, that you have the commitment.
Given the nod, you will be arriving at the Interior Ministry at a time that many Ghanaians are concerned. And this should cut across all political parties. You see political parties forming groups as though they will want to create their own protection outside the security architecture that our Constitution allows. And when elections are won, these groups just, maraud and invade and seize and do whatever they want outside the confines of the law. How can you really stamp your authority? And it's great that your background really brings some interesting dynamics. You've been chairman of the Nandom Youth and Development Association. You've been a former Attorney General and Minister of Justice, a former Upper West Regional Minister. And so you should understand, the psyche of the youth and why they will lend themselves to this vigilantism and, go about doing the things they do. How can you assure this nation that as Minister of the Interior, you will really address this matter and root it out of our body politic once and for all?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the principle is clear that all wrongdoing must be condemned and not be countenanced. However, handling of each complaint must be professionally pursued, that you are a suspect, investigation conducted in the context that Honorable Minority Leader was talking about, that the rights are respected, and people who deserve to be prosecuted will be prosecuted. I'm aware that I've got reports from the police already that some prosecutions are ongoing. I'm also happy that you have alluded to political or partisan considerations. Mr. Chairman, crime has no political color, no partisan color. And when we are too partisan, the only beneficiaries are the offenders and the criminals. And what is going to happen is that Ghana is not going to be the safe place for the necessary economic activity resulting in the economic development that we want. And it is also important to let individual citizens know that there is no vicarious liability in criminal offenses. That if any group tells you go and do wrong and you do, the furthest they will go is accompanied to the court. And when you are convicted, they look on you in helpless sympathy because you would go to serve the sentence. So I appeal to all political parties to deal with offenses dispassionately. Yes, the context must also be put right. Article 41 gives citizens the obligation to cooperate with security agencies. It also gives citizens the duties to protect public property and what have you. Indeed, when it comes to misuse of funds, it even uses compact. So we need to, in doing things professionally, ask the basis for these things. But I believe we can all take comfort in the fact that with experience, with time, the incidents are reducing. It started at a certain level and it's reducing. That shouldn't make us comfortable because there's only one league, and that's the international league. I don't believe in mediocrity where you create a smaller league so that you can be a champion. Maybe you talk best in West Africa or best in Africa. We must go for best international practices. And therefore, yes, we must work together. But we, the politicians, must give right leadership. We shouldn't give signals that might be misread to mean that it's reduced partisanship, that one side says A, the other side says B. Indeed, I believe Honorable Deputy Minority Leader will remember in the 5th Parliament when we were dealing with the drug issues in Parliament, there was this whole propaganda of trying to ascribe it to one group or the other. And I think that we should stop from those things. It does not help anybody. It looks like it's a competition of who is worse than the other, when we know that the perpetrators are not around this table, and indeed do know where political colors. So yes, we have the commitment to move forward, but when we are doing so, it must be professionally done and let all sides, in fact both sides now and beyond, play their part. Security is a collective responsibility. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Disbandment of these vigilante groups within political parties, because I do not think that there is any part of our law that legitimizes these groups and their activities with immediate effect if given the nod.
Mr. Chairman, it will be for me to be able to make such a recommendation or take such a decision, I must be convinced that those groups are responsible for these activities. And I've also said that there's no vicarious liability for criminal offenses. So I'm not aware that it's political party vigilantes that are doing so. And let me give an experience. Before I got into politics, I had a client from Ashama who came and told me she had constructed a filling station and that a chairman of a particular political party was always harassing him. And anytime he got to report it to the police, he was ignored. So I asked him, how did you report it? He said, I always say that it's a chairman of a particular party. Do you know the name? He said, no. I said, go and find the name. When he got the name, I sent a junior lawyer of mine with him. He reported and the man was taken. What I want us to know is that let us put the link offenses from partisan considerations. Ambrose has committed an offense. I'm Ambrose. I don't commit an offense as a member of the MPP because neither in the Constitution nor the manifesto does MPP provide for wrongdoing. So when we begin to take them as individuals, it will be better. Otherwise, it comes back to the whole, finger pointing. And then sometimes I know it might be a matter of style. The way we handle things too, when we go and want to discuss some things and we are wearing red, it might well be sending signals wrongly. So whether vigilante or not, let us know that criminal liability is personal and let people be responsible for their actions and let us not give them the comfort of support. Otherwise, what we're going to do is undermine security and we have ourselves to blame.
Chairman, support the Honorable Ablakwa. We've had instances after political transitions of which both political parties in Ghana are guilty, NDC and PP, where individual members of the party will walk to a public office or public institution and say, close up, we are taking over from you. Will that belong to the category you just described?
No person should be able to move up to another and say, hand over to me. He should go and report to the relevant institutions that this is my complaint. However, like I talked about Article 41, it gives citizens the duty to protect public property. So if a citizen sees you destroying public property, it would be naive for him or her to leave you and go to the police station and come back. That's why we need to put everything in context. And the balance is very important. The important thing is that we should act within the law. Report when there's a wrong. Don't take the law into your own hands. And when it comes to that, let's consider the individuals as in their personal capacities. And let's forget what the political parties are behind them. Let me tell you something. In my constituency, there are some people who have all the political party T-shirts. So how are you determining that they are political party? Because they're in a T-shirt? That doesn't actually mean they might be. So I think we need to work together. But you have my commitment to ensure that wrongdoing is stopped. Thank you.
I'd want to find out how you intend to fight corruption at the various agencies that will work under your ministry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The various agencies working under the Ministry of Interior would be called upon to enforce the law strictly, no deviation. If you make a wrong move, you'll be sanctioned. And once people know that that is it, you would have better services. They must work professionally. So that is what I will insist on.
Coordinate the activities of the various agencies.
Even now, there are reports, they see situational reports, and they bring up. And of course, if you are aggrieved, you would have to come forward and let me know what complaint you have. And I can assure you that I would follow up whatever complaints you have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can you critically analyze the various causes of conflicts in Ghana and what instruments you will be adopting and employing to prevent them and not address those conflict causes?
Thank you very much. Causes of conflict most of the time are local. The cause of conflict in one location might be chieftaincy, in another location might be economic. Even the honorable member will know that in some, it might even be soccer, football. So you need to understand them. The important thing is to resort more to alternative dispute resolution. If you go to the orthodox or traditional courts, there's always a winner and a loser. And the danger is that the winner might lose and the victim might wait for another day. So if we resort to alternative dispute resolution and begin to use even local approaches to it, I believe that we would be making progress. So that is the way I intend to deal with it.
Honorable Ambrose Dery, migration has become a very critical issue, politically and economically, the world over. In Europe recently, it's an issue. Ghana has been hit by serious cases of migration, and which has led to Ghanaians being played out in the areas, for example, in mining industry and also domestic trade. What measures will you be putting in place in order to make sure that we check the people who come into our country and also engage in these areas that, to some extent, the law preserves for Ghanaians?
I always go back to the chorus that we enforce our laws. We do not enforce them. If some area is meant for Ghanaians, let us ensure it is. The immigration services obviously must be involved in how people get in, make sure they have the requisite documentation. If they don't, we should deal with them. But again, we all need to understand. For instance, if you talk of migration, it might also involve others such as the Fulani issue. And there you might need, best international practices. Yes, the law is the law. If there are offenses, they must be dealt with. But we might have to find ways, for instance, or maybe introducing intensive approaches to some of the cultural practices that we have. So variously we can do that. But the important thing is that the law must be enforced. And case by case basis, we have to enforce the law. That's what I always go back to.
My last one it flows from Honorable Yarige's. The upsurge of slums and its attendant problems. What will your ministry be doing in reducing the deprivation and the difficulties in the slum areas that lead to vulnerability and the problems that come with such?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a multidisciplinary, multi-ministerial issue. And maybe it might make us to understand why we have now a Minister of Water and Sanitation. Maybe all these are all areas that need to be given attention. I'm sure the honorable member, whom I know, I had my constituents in his area and involved in activities, and I had to discuss with him. Maybe we need to do more of a hands-on approach to these things. And I believe a minister to deal with that area might well come in handy. And so we'll have to work together. But one ministry cannot deal with that. I will deal with the law enforcement part of it, but that is not sustainable. We have to get other approaches and other ministries to come in to help. So thank you.
It's very difficult because this is a very important area, internal security, and so I know, but there's so many issues. Because I did want to ask about the status of the recruitment scandal, which happened a year ago. I also did want to ask about security for JB's murder, but then after JB's murder. So I'm not sure how to go about
Chairman, we would raise an objection. The nominee is here. We are sitting as Parliament. Any matter you have that you deem scandalous, tender the evidence and proceed on it. That should be the posture of this committee. On any question, particularly on the murder of a colleague, we would be interested for you to ask the nominee and to ask all security agencies to follow through, letter, spirit, in enforcing that gruesome murder of our colleague never happened. So if you premise it with, I don't want to, we want to.
I did want to, but I don't know how I'm going to do it since I've been restricted to asking one
can you
question.
please ask one of the questions? Other chair has taken note of the others. You continue for you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then I'll ask the other one. Would you be prepared to reopen investigations into the Agbogboloshi murders, Tiwa, and all other such cases in view of the fact that there is no statute of limitations in criminal matters, and also in the light of current happenings, so that we can stamp out the impunity which is creeping into our body politic and making it seem as if, depending on the political color you wear, you can get away literally with murder. And so no matter who commits...
I'm sure the Attorney General is next in line. So when it comes to reopening investigations, I'm sure she'll be here in a few minutes. So if you ask another question.
Okay, so let me shelve that for the Attorney General. Now, just last year, our colleague was murdered in his bed. And a lot of conversations were had about improving security for members of parliament and other public officials. So far, not much has happened. The situation still remains the same. There is a likelihood that without focusing on the security of those who have elected to serve their nation in various guises, the judiciary is offered security, the executive is offered security, the legislature are left to our own devices. Is the message being sent out there that our lives are not worth protecting, even though we're also the second arm of government, and we're working in tandem with all the other arms of government to provide a system of governance that we have chosen and to make it work? What would you do as Minister for Interior to ensure that members of parliament also are given adequate security and to ensure that the investigation and prosecution of the perpetrators in this gruesome murder of our colleague is properly followed through, and that the informants who also provided the information that led to the arrest of the perpetrators would also be adequately rewarded and protected, and to give effect to proper witness protection. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to assure members here that even in the 5th Parliament, we had that challenge that we're talking about. So personally, I'm very interested in getting an arrangement in place. But I want to make it clear that it is not just for members of parliament, but even every citizen at large. But having said so, the special jobs that we have to do, leadership of parliament would have to take the necessary steps to appropriately make an application for it to be considered. At a vetting, we cannot get that resolved. Now, when it comes to the cases, I have my part, which is the investigatory one. The decision to prosecute or not is the Attorney General's. And when it's in process, it is the Attorney General. But, Mr. Chairman, having worked there before, and Attorney General is my dear sister, we'll work together to see how we can take it. But I'll be happy to have leadership, and indeed the whole House make the appropriate approach, and I would advocate that we have the necessary security while emphasizing that we also are interested in the security at large, lest they tell us we're scratching each other's backs here at the expense of the rest of citizenry. But I'm with you.
I'll do the follow-up myself. Are you suggesting that all citizens are exposed to the same risk as members of parliament?
So I said in the special case, but when I talk about that, it also benefits me. And I want to be sure that I'm doing it in the context of the national commitment. And that's what I'm saying. So yes, it's a special matter. And like I said, in the Fifth Parliament, we were concerned about this. Even, I don't know how it has improved. We used to have people roaming around in the prisons, and you could even get attacked in a washroom. So yes, I understand the problem. And there's a special case for parliamentarians. I agree.
I'm glad you agree to this, because I think that in this country, succumb to this populist thing that because we elect the people, they are not entitled to some of the benefits or other. But certainly, if one MP loses his life, it costs the nation a lot of money to replace him. If we're considering that, some of these populism would go down. But if I were a magistrate, I would have a policeman. Yeah. My colleagues in here, your juniors who are at the High Court, they have policemen sitting in their cars going back and forth. And DCs have policemen. So we should make sure that the risk that we're exposed to, because we are doing things that other people are not happy about, because we are refusing loans and so on, we should be considered as a breed of people that are exposed, and therefore, anyway.
Mr. Chairman, let me give you my word. No need for preaching. I'm with you. Thank you.
Honorable Attachment, please.
Question, just two, for the purposes of time and the rest of it. The whole area of police recruitment is a sensitive matter. And if somebody has a very, very shady background and is empowered by the state to protect us, the consequences will be there. We can't put our finger on it. So therefore, if you do not have a serious recruitment checks, background analysis, even with psychologists in tow, to see whether this man is fit to hold a gun, then we will be endangering the lives of Ghanaians. What kind of arrangements do you have in mind to ensure that when we say this man has been recruited to come and protect, to go through the training and eventually come and protect us, it's not a gamble?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I absolutely, totally agree with Honorable Atachi on this matter. I think that we need to restructure the whole military recruitment exercise and ensure that we put in place background checks on people that we are recruiting. I mean, we hear several times that police officers are involved in robberies and other offenses. And just as we are talking now, if we end up doing the right thing, giving each member of parliament a bodyguard, and he ends up being an armed robber, I mean, he might even find it easier to kill and go scot-free. So it's a serious area of concern, and we intend to streamline that. Maybe we need some ITT coming. Even, there was a scandal recently. I've asked that the report of the investigation be made available so that we can learn from what happened then. But I agree that we need to do a more thorough recruitment of our police people than we do now. There are even allegations that some people don't even go through the system, but they are taken. And if we continue to do so, we will all be endangering the lives of everybody. So I agree. We need to review and restructure the recruitment.